What does the future hold? I mean, we were sold the line of progress, and yet here we all are, locked in our homes, no food on the shelves, no delivery slots left for the online orders. The only thing keeping us going is endless Zoom meetings and the entire back catalogue on Netflix. And so in these days, perhaps more than ever, we live our lives in hope for the future, for the hope that lockdown won't last as long as we feared, for the hope that our holiday plans won't go up in smoke, for the hope that we won't lose our position at work or our place at university or our pension pot, for the hope that we won't end up on a ventilator in a lonely hospital ward. And the thing that haunts us in the background, the stranger in the room, is that death might be just around the corner. Death, the great destroyer of hope. All hope is lost in the face of death, isn't it? Now we try our best to deal with the inevitability of death in different ways. We rationalize it. Death is just the next stage in the cycle, we say, though we don't really feel like that. We ignore it, but that feels hard to do when there's a death toll printed on the front page of every broadsheet. We fight it. Hygiene masks, hand gel, hand washing to happy birthday twice, but we just can't shake the feeling that we're delaying the inevitable. And then when death does come, we recite vague platitudes. I'm sure he's up there looking down on you now. And yet none of these things really help to deal with the issue. They're just a morphine to numb the pain. But what if there was a hope that could make sense of death, that could stand up to death, that could help us to face the fear of death and even triumph over it? What if there was a hope that was concrete and not just wishful thinking? Something which lasted, which gave us hope, not just for today or tomorrow or the next week or the next month, but forever. In John's true account of Jesus' life, found in the Bible, there's a moment where a good friend of Jesus, a man called Lazarus, has got really sick, and after a few short days, he's died, and everyone is understandably distraught. And yet Jesus arrives, and he says to Lazarus' grieving sister these wonderful words, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die." Now, can you see what Jesus is saying? That belief in him means true life now, as we were made for, restored back to relationship with God. But not only that, belief in him also means life forever, that death is not the end. Which is a remarkable thing to say, right? To a woman who is acutely feeling the loss of her brother, Jesus turns up and says, "Believe in me and know life forever." Now, if Jesus is just another ordinary guy, that is the most insensitive thing he could possibly say. But Jesus isn't just another ordinary guy, because the story continues. And if you read on, you'll see that Jesus takes Lazarus' sisters to the tomb where Lazarus has been buried for 4 days, and Jesus stands in front of it and he cries, "Lazarus, come out." And what happens? Lazarus comes out. John writes this: "The dead man came out, his hands and his feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. And Jesus said to them, 'Take off the grave clothes and let him go.'" And in that one instance, Jesus demonstrates absolute authority over death. But that wasn't it, because the thing is, this was just a signpost to a greater resurrection story. Because if you keep on reading in John's true account, you'll find that Jesus himself was put to death in a very public execution after a sham trial. And the reason why he died was as a substitute for us. He died to swap places with us, to face the punishment from God that we deserved for turning away from him. But crucially, Jesus didn't stay dead, and John records that Jesus came back to life, and he's still alive now in heaven. And that makes all the difference. Because if Jesus rose from the dead, then it means we can trust him when he says things like, "Whoever believes in me will never die." Now that's a big if, but if it's true, it changes everything. If Jesus really is the resurrection and the life, it means there's hope even in the face of the coronavirus. If Jesus really is the resurrection and the life, it means there's a hope that lasts. If Jesus really is the resurrection and the life, it means there's a hope that outlives even death itself. And so as we live now in hope for a flattened curve and a vaccine and an online delivery slot and avoiding serious symptoms and adequate provision for the NHS and all of these good things, for a hope that's future-proof, even in the face of death, come to Jesus. Come to Jesus and live.